Alright, third time's the charm. I promise I will get through this last piece and then we'll wrap up our video lectures for today. So the last piece I want to highlight, because this is tied directly to your project, which is addressing the development model of focusing on sustainable development. Sustainable development was introduced in the 1990s, and again, textbook definition, we're trying to actually promote development, but we're actually trying to make sure that we're providing for the needs of the present, but not necessarily taking away for future generations to come. So we want to try to, again, have the economic improvement, but still addressing that environmental conservation and making sure it's sustained and it can last longer. So the real-world application, we'll look at renewable resources. I also want to touch on the fact that the last part of the key issue in your textbook is dealing with financing development. So kind of hand in hand with sustainable development also is going to be looking at loans to countries, or again addressing the issue of loans to women. Also in your textbook it highlights a small section on page 303, which is looking at the green microloans, of how important that is to a country, and trying to include women into the discussion, of course, even going back to key issue number 3, how important women, their involvement in economic decisions and political decisions is for development. Now, also in your textbook on page 302, in the last part of the summary of the key issues, there is a small section. We did mention in class, even though this current research project is focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, there were some goals that were presented earlier, which are known as the Millennium Development Goals. So those goals were 8. You could see them on the screen right now. Obviously similar to the 17 goals you're currently working with, but kind of a smaller scale. And again, the deadline for those goals was 2015. We have seen progress, but it's sad to say we have not achieved those goals yet. And that's exactly why we're working with the current list of goals, which you can also see on the screen right now, which are those 17, much more specific, with the goal of achieving these goals by 2030. I wanted to at least show you guys the Millennium Development Goals, because if and when there was ever an FRQ question about this coming up in May for the AP exam, since FRQ questions are usually written a few years before, chances are they might address the Millennium Goals, and I don't want you to say, gee, I never heard of that before, because here it is right in your video flipped lecture. Alright, let's go ahead and just wrap up today's video lecture with just 2 quiz questions, because remember, not this week but next week is our unit test for Unit 2. So I threw on the screen, number 1, Niger's economy is most limited to, and number 2, Rostow's model I should say, predicts that each country's economy will progress from. So take a minute and don't be a cheater McCheaterson. Read over the answers and see if you guys can guess the answers to these multiple choice questions. Give you a few minutes to think. Alright, so number 1, Niger's economy is most limited to. The correct answer would be B, because we know Nigeria, countries at low levels of economic development like Niger have economies that are more closely aligned or oriented with that primary activities. And remember, go back in the beginning of the lecture, primary activities, we're talking about fishing, farming, and mining. For number 2, Rostow's models predict each country's economy will progress from. Correct answer would be C. Rostow's stages of development model provides a view of economies with the whole goal of going the steps up. So it's heading towards a single ultimate purpose, which of course is trying to achieve a higher per capita income. they're trying to have more money, they're trying to have higher levels of material consumption. So the correct answer would be C. If you missed those two questions, I'm going to go back through your notes, rewind the video lecture on YouTube, and see where you can fill in the holes. All right, remember, do not forget the last piece of your lecture should always be to review. So now's the piece where perhaps if you're doing Cornell notes, you write the summary at the bottom, you go back through PU number 4, and you annotate additional notes from the textbook, perhaps even go through with a certain color, add vocabulary words. So remember, do not just be a human copy machine. The purpose of a lecture is for you to get the content, get you thinking, and get you studying so you prepare for the test next week. All right, folks, I'll see you in class. Have a beautiful day.